Bear down, Chicago. It's the Bears Squad. Sponsored by Gametime. Everything Chicago Bears, every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Windy City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From Soldier Field to the next great chapter, the Bears Squad Show starts now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Bears Squad Show here on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel. Our first post-game show of the season as preseason game number 1 is over, and it's a 24-24 tie. Ends anticlimactic. We'll get through all of it today. The good, the bad, the ugly, what we learned from Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen's offense and defense, and then what we want to look forward to and see next week versus the Buffalo Bills in preseason game number 2. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Joe George and Lorin Cox here with you for the next hour. Lorin, we'll start with the good stuff. I think there's quite a bit of good in this game, honestly, from the Bears on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. So let's just start. Who do you want to single out first for what they did in this game?
Yeah, I think the biggest one that stands out has to be Austin Booker, right? I mean, the pass rushing tenacity that we saw from him was really encouraging. I mean, we've been looking for him to be able to take a step forward in year 2. And I think myself in particular, I'm going to be really careful about not overblowing having a big preseason game performance. Like, I think everyone's quickly, the reaction is like, oh, this guy's going to have 8 sacks off the bench this season. And like, but there's this fine line between like celebrating a good preseason game and being encouraged by that without saying it's meaningless and has nothing, but without getting it too out of control and saying it's everything. So, I think for me, it's the motor and the effort that can kind of elevate a player like that in the preseason. And then it's always nice to see him beat up on like Jermaine Ifedi, an ex-Bear, that it's like, oh yeah, that works. That fits. Yeah. 3 sacks and a forced fumble for Austin Booker. Yeah. He's definitely the, kind of the star of the game for sure. He was phenomenal for the most part. And one of the biggest positives from a big picture from the defense is that the Dolphins were rolling out Tua, and a lot of their main guys, Devin Achane was out there, obviously. And yeah, they moved the ball a little bit in that first drive, but ultimately the Bears got it done. And then Austin Booker came in later and performed very well. I think back to those first couple drives, the other guy on defense for me that really stands out is Noah Sewell. A lot of really great plays for him at the line of scrimmage in the backfield there on 4th and goal to get the big tackle, kind of flying all over the place in this one. So I feel like, to me, that the top 2 guys who stood out the most, whose stock would be the most up, are those 2. And I think it's 2 ones that's really positive for when you think about the Bears roster. Like, who's your third linebacker? Who are your other guys at the edge rusher position that we expect to be rotating in and out? Those are 2 guys that probably are, I think, Bears fans should be the most excited about. And as you said, it is a preseason context, but still feel really good about after this first game. Yeah, in particular, those goal line stands stood out to me because, like, in the preseason, the actual like team performance, right, scores and stuff like doesn't really matter that much. But that first goal line drive where they held the Dolphins starters out of the end zone, like that to me meant more and signaled more and is more real than a lot of the rest of the preseason game. Because like when you're in the goal line like that, there's not a lot of like scheme and game plan kind of stuff. It's just like our big strong guys against your big strong guys, and who can have better technique and leverage. And it's just like it's kind of pure football in that sense, where it's like, yeah, the rest of the game, you're not scheming up special plays for that coverage or special coverages for the opposing offense, but like that goal line football is as close to real regular season type of mechanics as you can get. And a lot of Bears backups held up well against Dolphin starters there. And to me, like, that was real positive, signs of like this group being able to still hold up in a regular season context.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's the one possession that means the most, for sure. There's really, I felt a little jealousy. I know we knew Caleb wasn't going to play, and they were there at 8:30 this morning going through all the plays and stuff like that, and a pretty intense workout, it seems, this morning before the game. I was a little jealous that like Tua was out there and those guys, because I'm ready to see that the real Bears get in action, especially after the reports of how the inter-squad practice went. How there was a lot of positive stuff from Caleb in that practice and from the defense. But the defense overall is probably what shines the most is that possession. What Dominic Robinson also had a couple really good pressures in this game. They were just collectively getting after the Dolphins, and it didn't really matter if it was the Dolphins' first, second, or third unit. So really my other big takeaway from this game before we get to more players is just that so far as advertised, Dennis Allen's defense through a preseason game, the intensity and everything, it equaled that for sure.
Yeah, and it was interesting, some of the like really small little wrinkles in there where he'd have Dominic Robinson stand up on in passing in third down and passing down situations. Like they'd kind of let him play kind of an outside linebacker at the line of scrimmage, because you might as well, if he's still learning the defensive end position and maybe he feel like he can have a little bit of a faster get up without having to have a hand in the dirt there. Booker did the same thing at other points in the game there. And it was interesting too with Austin Booker that, he wasn't one of the starters in this game, right? I mean, the first team defensive line was Dominic Robinson and then Tano Passanio on the other side. So like Booker, to me, that was a very clear sign that Booker is a step below those guys on the depth chart. Even if it's a small step, it's still, they had to pick 2 of the 3 and he was the one they didn't pick. And so certainly the 3-sack kind of performance he had should get him more of those opportunities in the future. But the fact, I think we can overlook from the beginning that he was starting from behind, he was behind those guys in the starting lineup.
We also will take your guys' comments and questions as well here in the live YouTube chat and off the air as well. You guys can tweet us your questions. But see, Noel fan says here, some mistakes, but great resilience from the Bears. Great intensity. Love what I'm seeing. They still need to clean it up. Defense was after it today. Amazing stuff. Yeah, that's, again, the intensity, that's what stands out the most. Is it does feel Lovey came up quite a handful of times on the broadcast today. And he's obviously been brought up recently with that practice where, Brad Biggs said it was the most intense practice he's seen since the Lovie Smith era. So far, of the things that can translate from a new coaching staff, that's the one that stands out to me the most. The other player that I early on made a really positive impact was Nashawn Wright. Obviously, him and Tyreek Stevenson both out there at the start of the game. Specifically, that play at the line of scrimmage where I don't know if it was a jet sweep. He avoided the block, got the tackle in the backfield. You talk about is there real competition here for the CB2 spot? He had a solid performance, I would say, as well, and that stood out to me.
See, I was torn on that because did he make the tackle? I mean, he started the tackle,
sure.
And it's one of those things where if that second player hadn't been there, would the ball carrier have been able to regain their balance? It happened so quickly, we don't know. I mean, there's no way to play that out and say, I mean, if there was no one else on the football field, could he have gotten his balance without falling down? Probably. But the fact, I mean, he slowed him down enough to allow for the other tackle is there. But I saw Nashawn Wright miss at least one other tackle a little bit later in this game, and he got targeted early. There was particularly a 4th down play on the far side of the field that they threw to. So I thought there were some ups and downs from him, but he got a lot of action, a lot of playing time out there to kind of see he and Stevenson going at it. And then, I mean, Terrell Smith too had the near pick 6, but then left with the injury and he was doubtful to return. So then I'm not super confident, and I'm worried that might be a more significant injury than maybe we could tell from watching on the field. But his break on that ball was nice. You can see these defensive backs, their size and speed and athletic ability and just being aggressive kind of comes out through them.
We focused on, is there anyone else on defense that stood out for you in this game specifically?
I think those were the main guys for me. I'm just double checking my notes here, but I think, that's pretty much it for defense for me. Zach Pickens had a couple these big size plays. I mean, he didn't flash and jump off the page, but he certainly didn't he wasn't losing against a bunch of backups either. So that was, I don't know if encouraging is the right word there, but it wasn't discouraging. I guess it was at best or at worst meeting expectations there. So I'm kind of always keeping tabs on what he's doing. He was in there early and often throughout the game on the interior.
I do think that matters in preseason, is even if it's not always encouraging. I think discouraging and meeting expectations is a part of preseason that you want to see. There are going to be guys, I got to imagine Dolphins fans right now are not happy with what they're seeing from their offensive line from the 1st through 4th unit or whatever was out there. And I do feel like the Bears, for the most part, and I think Pickens is a good example of that, to where he met the expectation for what the day was. What does it mean for the future? We don't know. But at least for today, we're not walking away and doing this show and being like, hey, that's someone that is probably not going to make the roster. I don't feel like that is in the cards. Honestly, I don't really feel like there's anyone from the Bears today, and we'll get to the negative stuff later that screamed like this guy doesn't belong. maybe the quarterback at the end, but that's might be it.
Well, and when it comes to the Dolphins' offensive line is definitely a weakness of theirs, and that's part of why I'm trying not to get too carried away with Booker, because I just think the Dolphins don't have a particularly strong line, and the depth is not great there either. And then also even the intensity and the physicality thing, I don't want to take anything away from the Bears absolutely doing that and playing harder and looking like that kind of intense physical team, but also I do think playing the Dolphins in particular can be a little bit of a contrast there that makes you look even more physical and intense, because the Dolphins have been long, or at least recently, have been trying to fight a reputation of being kind of soft and not being physical. They're a soft finesse team, and they've been pushing back against that and trying to embrace a little bit more toughness. And when it's still the same players and the same coaching staff, I don't know how you'd turn that over and not still be kind of soft in that regard. And so I wonder a little bit of if the intensity stands out just a little bit more because the opponent isn't particularly intense and physical and tough, but that doesn't mean it's still not valuable to see the Bears doing it. We want to see the Bears doing it. Doesn't mean it wasn't still impressive, but also maybe it's dialed up a little bit more against Miami. And I'm curious, against Buffalo next week, I think of Buffalo as being a little bit more able to match the Bears' physicality in that regard. And I want to see then if it stands out the same way.
Reese asked here in the chat, do you think Walker has a chance to make the team? Reese said he looks very fluid on his releases and catches the ball very naturally. Had a couple hiccups, but nothing alarming in the game. I think the wide receiver, Walker is going to be interesting just to figure out where this team goes for a roster making perspective. I think, yes, I do think everyone's got a chance right now. Again, I don't think anyone is at this point in camp stood out to me from what we've read and seen reported of guys that are not going to make the roster. So I think on surface level, I would say yes, but probably more a practice squad than anything like that.
Yeah, the big challenge for Walker is if he's going to make this Bears team, then obviously he's going to be number 6 wide receiver-ish. And you're making the team as a number 6 wide receiver, not for the really impressive catches you make in the end zone, but for what you do on special teams. And it's hard for undrafted rookie free agents to come in on special teams and make a instant high-level impact. It does happen, but it's not something that you can usually count on, especially an undrafted player like this that you feel like you can stash on the practice squad because no one's going to come in and roster him just based on a couple of good preseason games. I would put his chances pretty close to 0, but injuries and other stuff, you never say never.
Yeah, for sure. All right, he's Lorin Cox. I'm Joe George. We'll take our first break here. When we get back, let's look at the offensive side of the ball, the positives from the day. I don't feel like there's as many that stood out, but there are little things that happened. I think from including a lot of your rookies on offense today. We'll get into all of that next year on the Bears Squad Show on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel. This episode is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with fantasy football experience like never before. I'm in a league with some of my coworkers and their friends, and we are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too. Whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league, Yahoo Fantasy is the place to go. My Dynasty League, that's what lives there. We just completed a rookie draft last week. I'm ready just to get this thing rolling right now. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season right around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. All right, Lorin, let's look at the offensive side of the ball. What's the first player you want to talk about today of what stood out for you in preseason game number 1?
Yeah, I think there's a few different directions you could go here. I don't know that I have oh my gosh, this guy was just blowing me out of the waters, but Kyle Monangai was exactly as advertised in terms of tough physical running, tacklers bouncing off his pads. It was only 6 carries. It wasn't it was no big breakaway touchdown run, but it was just all right, that checks a box there for sure of just exactly what you were expecting. Although in the same boat, he was not particularly good in pass protection. And so it was well, that's going to make his third down opportunities more challenging. But as the longer Roschon Johnson's out with his foot injury that we don't really know the full extent of, but they brought in running backs that they're looking at. So, I mean, I think Monangai's got a good opportunity here to be that like complimentary, like early down running back to pair with DeAndre Swift. But like, I don't know if he's got much of a future on third downs just yet.
Yeah, I think that he was the first one I had kind of pointed at too. I mean, that first possession, Tyson has some pressure in his face, and it's because Monangai kind of just gets bullied a little bit there in the backfield, and he's supposed to be. I mean, he makes contact at least, but like, so he look, he's not afraid to make that, which I guess is a positive. But it was not good blocking. But obviously, like the 13-yard run that he had, the cutback, he was going to his left and cut back to the right for 13 yards, stands out in the most positive way. For him. Again, you're right. I mean, it is a huge question mark right now. You don't want to look too much into maybe we don't want to look too much into like Jamal Williams coming to town and other running backs, but with Roschon and this injury and his injury history, it's hard not to think that Ben Johnson is concerned with his return and then potentially also what he's seeing from Monangai. Like, while it's positive, I think there's still leaves some to be desired, but overall, like a good day for him for sure.
And we can't rule out the possibility, as much as I don't want to, of like, could Travis Homer be the third down running back again this year in that kind of a role where like kind of the whole point of this offseason, right, was to try and be better at that position and not have Travis Homer playing any offensive snaps and maybe not even making the 53-man roster. And maybe that's getting too far ahead of ourselves here with the Roschon situation, but like that to me is one that is going to take some further analysis of the preseason of like how they keep distributing those backs. And same thing, I was surprised to see the undrafted rookie free agent from this year, Hankins, Dion Hankins or Hawkins. I always get it.
Hankins, yeah.
He was in the game before Ian Wheeler in the backfield rotation. I thought as much as we saw Ian Wheeler last season playing well in the preseason, I thought we'd get to see more of him early, but all three of those guys kind of split carries. But Monangai was kind of the one who, of the three backs, is the only one who really like shined.
Yeah, I mean, Hankins had the nice touchdown catch from Case Keenum later in this game, but 7 carries, 23 yards. But yeah, that one stood out. I mean, I feel like Homer played a handful of snaps. I feel like he wasn't out there that much in this game. But like it wasn't so. It's they didn't really fix it this offseason. And not that the preseason is the end all be all, but like I think we all knew going into the season that coming off of last year, like everything you just said, Lorin, so true is like. They reportedly wanted to trade up for Travion Henderson, who took his first kick return back in the preseason for the Patriots, which I think kind of irked all of us in a way, I would imagine. But they didn't really fix the room, and that's why you're seeing it's kind of a more – that feels like the most open competition right now, maybe on the Bears actually, is who's the second running back behind DeAndre Swift. And I don't think anyone separated themselves in this game. Monangai was good, but I don't think he did like a full separation, at least through one preseason game.
And just to close the loop there, Travis Homer played 5 snaps. He had
okay
carries and then three plays as a receiver out of the backfield. No player on offense played fewer snaps than Travis Homer. But an interesting thing in this game, I don't know, this isn't quite a positive versus a negative thing, but like Colston Loveland played 6 snaps and then his day was done. But Luther Burden played like the entire first half and was very clearly behind Devin Duvernay and Tyler Scott. He was only coming in 3 receiver sets in those first few drives. And then once Duvernay's day was done, then they were using Burden in 2 receiver sets too. But like that to me clearly felt like not just he's a rookie who needs some extra playing time, but like, no, he's behind and needs extra playing time. Like Loveland, they weren't concerned about. They just, give him a few snaps and get him out of there. But like Burden, it didn't feel like they're hiding him or keeping him a secret. It was like, no, he's got to earn more opportunities because clearly more Odunze, Zacchaeus, and now Scott and Duvernay are ahead of him on the depth chart.
Yeah, that stands out. That's probably one of the things that for me too, I was like, at first I was, my initial reaction as the game was happening was a little worrisome of Colston Loveland of like, where did he go? Because you're just like, because he's coming off an injury, but he didn't have a huge impact on this game. I did think the catch he had on like the 3rd and 16, where I think he got 9 yards on the play, was just a little dump off from Tyson Bagent. That still was like, okay, like you can kind of see the juice there when he had the ball in his hands, and he obviously didn't get the full first down, but you're right. The fact that he's out so early and then Burden in there is so long, it's a very clear message from the coaching staff about where these 2 guys stand right now as we get close to the season.
And I think for Colston Loveland, and maybe I'm just projecting here, but for me, there's got to be something about him getting hit in that shoulder in a real, I mean, it's a preseason game, but like it's a real game, right? Like just to be able to kind of get through that mental barrier of like, this shoulder has been the thing I've been thinking about constantly for the last 6 months. And it's all about recovery and strength and durability of the shoulder. So to like make a catch in the game and then lower that shoulder and have contact to the shoulder just to kind of like get that like peace of mind of like, okay, I can take a hit and it doesn't hurt. And it's like a real, I mean, it's not a regular season game, but it's not just like a practice bump. It's like, no, a real live in-game tackle to that repaired shoulder is just like a confidence thing of like, all right, now I don't have to think about it anymore because I know it's like, I know I can handle it. I know it's good to go.
The other guy you mentioned, because I just didn't know what to expect from him this year. I mean, for years, just talking about Yahoo Fantasy, for years, Lorin, I would be end of the draft taking flyers on Devin Duvernay, like hoping at some point like he was going to have that breakout year. And we saw, a little bit in the return game, but I didn't expect to see him as active in the offense as he was today. I guess it is, what we're talking about here with Burden being lower on the depth chart, but I did think like Duvernay made a positive impression of like the veteran guys on this roster as well for me.
Yeah, and it was surprising to see him play like on the outside quite a bit too, like in more of a full receiver role there. But going through the snap counts in this game, it looks like Duvernay and Tyler Scott essentially played the first 2 drives, and Duvernay stopped playing on offense midway through the second drive, and that's when Luther Burden came in. So like Duvernay was treated kind of as close to like a borderline starter in this game. Scott stayed in, Duvernay came out, and that's when Burden got a bigger role on offense. But it was about 14 plays the first drive and a half of like, just get Duvernay out there, see kind of how he looks and does, and says, all right, good enough. We'll keep it moving with the rest of the offense.
Yeah, I mean, think about it, if you're just like, if we're going to make some giant assumptions and we know what that can mean, but like on the way it played out in my mind today on the field was it looks like Duvernay is kind of your 4th guy right now.
Yeah.
On your depth chart. Like, it's DJ, it's Rome, it's Zacchaeus, and then it's Duvernay, at least at this point, just the visually the way they portrayed it through preseason. Again, a lot can change in the next, 3 weeks before the first Bears game of the season, or 4 weeks before the first Bears game of the season. But for now, like, it's just how it was. It is interpreted for me. In terms of Burden's performance, some up, some down, I think is a good way to put it. Obviously, on the 3rd and 15 there's the positive number 1 that he catches the ball a little short of the sticks, but he knows where to get the ball. He does cross it. That's a very positive play. The play there at the end of the first half with him and Tyson Bagent, where he's able to get the quick out route and get out of bounds with 1 second left on the clock before Kairos comes in and kicks a 56-yard field goal. So those are the 2 real positive standouts for Burden. The one that, like, they talked about it on the broadcast a little bit was when he went up with 1 hand, and he probably should have gone up for 2 earlier in the game and didn't make the catch. Did kind of look like he was prepared for some pretty heavy contact there. So I wouldn't say it was a great day for Burden, but you saw a little flash here and there of like what it could be.
Even on one of the catches he made, the curl route, the comeback route, like I didn't love, like he caught it like with the underhand, like he let it come all the way into his body instead of like attacking the ball out. Like it's just the little things like that it's not going to be the difference between success and failure necessarily, but it's like when you talk about the details and the trying to refine and not be sloppy in any way, shape, or form, like just those little stuff, I think is why you're seeing Ben Johnson maybe play him a little bit more and not put him higher on the depth chart, just because you want to see him continue to improve those things and not make the same mistakes twice.
Yeah, that's something that's obviously been a little bit of an issue at camp, right? We have the story about him getting yelled at from like 2 weeks ago by Ben Johnson for just being lined up in the wrong spot. And, when it was rookie OTAs, Ben Johnson was very forward with the fact that Luther Burden not being there, it was putting him behind schedule a little bit. And I don't think it's, Tom Thibodeau here where like he doesn't play rookies like he did for the Bulls. But like, I do think Ben Johnson is trust really matters to him. And if Burden is behind on trust, then it's going to be a while. Like I think there's a realistic chance that Burden's not really an impact player for the Bears until the back half of the season. Maybe if it's even next season, or it could be week 1. But like it feels like it's trending towards like he's not going to impact this team right away.
Yeah, I mean, it everything says like it's going to be more Odunze and Zacchaeus as the 1-2-3 playing the majority of the snaps. So then, are there certain packages they want to use Luther Burden in? Like, I don't want to say like, gimmick plays per se, but like we know his strengths, as a player with the ball in his hands, yards after the catch, speed, so you bring him in and not that you run exclusively, jet sweeps and screen passes to him, but like maybe you carve out a little something just to get him involved. You want to be able to use that skill set in some ways, even if you can't maybe, or you don't want to fully trust him to do all of everything all the time, but like maybe Zacchaeus is going to be the more reliable option for the majority of the year, but like find ways to get him on the field and get the ball in his hands just to add that spice in and use the talent that he does have without having to ask him to do more than he's capable of right now.
I got one more player actually from defense that I forgot to mention. So if you got one more, we can get to yours as well before break. The other linebacker who was maybe the most controversial decision the Bears made this offseason because nobody knew who Hippolyte was. I thought there were some moments in this game too where like you saw the athleticism, you saw him in the backfield, part of those goal line stands early on. Like he was around the chaos. So where, yes, I think Noah Sewell in terms of depth chart wise, like is clearly the third linebacker on this team right now. I do think Hippolyte also did make for me a very positive impression from this game. So he was the other one for me that I forgot to mention earlier.
Yeah, I'm with you there 100%. Like both of those linebackers, I think, gave you some confidence in the depth there that, heaven forbid you miss a game or two from Edwards or Edmonds, that you're not going to be out there with, somebody who's just going to be totally lost and get absolutely demolished by opposing teams. I also do wonder though, like if it's easier for somebody like Noah Sewell in particular to stand out in a preseason game where, you're going up against a lot of backups and maybe it's not as full speed as regular season game might be. And that's kind of the concern with Sewell. Like he was really great coming downhill in the running game, but we didn't see him have to make a lot of plays in coverage necessarily, right? He wasn't turning and running with tight ends or receivers up and down the field. So again, like really encouraged by what he did. I just want to not get too carried away either and kind of find a middle ground here of like, yeah, he was good. Like to see it. Let's see more.
Yeah, I think the good thing about this game for Bears fans is like I don't think there's anything that like because you're not anyone that played today, you're not really expecting to make a major impact on this team, potentially outside of Loveland Burden and then Ozzie Trapillo, like who we'll talk about probably a little bit more in the next segment. Like for the most part, like it's depth pieces out there, and really who's going to be your second corner for the most part. Now that like we didn't know when we recorded did our show on Tuesday, Lorin, like what the plan was, but now that you've seen it in action for this first week of the preseason before we go to break, what do you make of Ben Johnson's decision to play limited starters on both sides of the ball for the Bears in this game?
Yeah, this mirrors pretty well what he was doing in Detroit with Dan Campbell. So I don't know that I was surprised, but I don't know. I think we'll see the starters at some point, the way he kind of hinted at it. And I don't know. I didn't watch the Dolphins starters out there going like, oh wow, look at all the valuable opportunities the Dolphins starters are getting being in this game. Like I don't know. It feels largely inconsequential to me. Like it's something to talk about and like it's worth a conversation. But like if Caleb Williams plays 10 snaps this preseason versus 0 snaps this preseason, is he going to be more or less rusty because of 10 plays? Like I don't know that it's ultimately going to be that big of a deal. Week 1's always a weird game anyway, whether you played a bunch in the preseason or not. So I don't have super strong feelings about it either way. I think Ben Johnson sees them more than we do and knows a lot more about where they're at and then not than we do. And so I think he deserves some benefit of the doubt until he loses that.
Yeah, I said earlier I was jealous. That's because I just want to see Caleb Williams play football again. Like I'm just
exactly.
But you're right. If it's if the plan was we're going Tua Tagovailoa for Mike McDaniels, he's playing one series and they go 3 and out instead of that long series where the Bears stop him in the red zone. Like, is that literally all he's doing today? Is those 3 plays? It's like that's Patrick Mahomes did one series, it ended in a touchdown, yes, but really only like the Bengals I feel like have played pretty aggressively so far in the preseason. So if you're not going to play 3 or 4 series, I'm with you. It's not the end of the world to me. Do I want to see more? Yes. But do I think a lot of it depended on what happened at practice on Friday versus the Dolphins? Also, yes. And I think it might be similar next week where if they go out there and, inter squad against the Bills and like they play great on Friday, maybe we won't see him as much here on Sunday. So I hope we see more of them at some point because I'm just anxious. I'm an anxious fan, Lauren. I'm not. It's not necessarily for the player. This is a me mode. Okay, this is a selfish mode.
Yeah, like I'm here for it for the entertainment value, but I'm not sure that,
Yes.
it's not like if he goes 3 for 4, whatever Tua Tagovailoa's passing line was today. What was it? I get 5 for 6 for 27 yards. Like if Caleb Williams came out and did that, are we going to go, oh yeah, offense is set. We're ready for a big, it's like, and same thing if he comes out. I mean, I guess I saw like Graham Mertz, the Texans, threw 3 picks. You might be concerned if he comes out and goes that bad, but like even if he's 1 for 4. Oh no, does that mean the offense is broken? Like, no, it's the preseason. So I whatever, I want to watch it for the entertainment, but the football value of them being out there, probably not as much.
Yeah. Now there are guys in this game that, we talked about the positives in this one, who this was valuable to. I think there's one specific, I think we all know who it is. It's Braxton Jones, who we'll talk about after this break, what we saw from him today. There's a couple plays that really stand out in a negative way. So we'll talk about him next. And overall, just what we learned from Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen as much as you can in a preseason game. That's all coming up next year on the Bear Squad Show and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel. Today's show is also brought to you by Gametime. We've all been there logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping, and that's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever, and prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of endless scrolling, trying to find the best deal, Gametime's Zone Deal picks the best seat for you in your section for you. So take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. In terms of people going to the game, it seemed loud there. Like for a preseason game, I was listening. I was like, wow. I was like, people are amped up for preseason football. It shows you how much we all miss it. But the negatives with this game, we'll start with Braxton Jones. I don't know if he's a positive or a negative. I think he was credited with giving up 1 sack, I believe, or it will be in the end. And then on the touchdown pass, I can't remember the wide receiver's name, that Tyson Bagent threw earlier in the game. You did see Braxton got beat really badly on that play and immediately got to Tyson, and Tyson recognized it, got the ball out, completes the touchdown. So in the end, it does look like a positive play. Just a couple moments for Braxton where he wasn't at his best. And in terms of what we were just talking about with playing time, I'm not sure what the official snap count will be, Lauren, but he seemed to be out there way longer than Ozzie in terms of just like the amount of reps that were given to him in this game.
Yeah, so Braxton Jones played the entire first half until the 2-minute drive. Ozzie came in with 1:40 left in the game when Bagent and the quote-unquote starting offense of the game were in. So it ended up being 24 snaps for Braxton Jones, and then Ozzie plays the entire second half plus that last drive of the first half. So Ozzie had 37 to Braxton Jones 24 over the course of the game. I think for me, Braxton Jones still doesn't look physically right. I mean, something just feels off in terms of the recovery from the ankle injury. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's just a perception thing and it's not reality. Maybe he feels fine and it just looked funny on the screen or whatever it might be. I mean, it's one game and a relatively small sample size, but I don't know. I didn't come away super concerned, oh my gosh, he was terrible to get this guy out of here, but also, wasn't dominating and impressive in a way that you were hoping for. And I kind of felt the same way about Ozzie, where it's okay, Ozzie, you're up against pure backups and third stringers. And I would like to see you dominate a little bit more then, right? If Braxton was playing some starters for a little while there and then some backups too, but I was hoping that as the Dolphins went farther and farther down their depth chart, Ozzie Trapillo would look better and better. And I didn't really see anything dominating or impressive. He got beat a couple times in pass protection. His run blocking was fine. It wasn't again, not overly concerning or overly spectacular, but I kind of wanted it to be a little bit more spectacular. If you're competing to be the Bears starting left tackle and you're not dominating Dolphins second and third stringers, that's, I'm not going to say a red flag, but that's something to keep monitoring. And I don't know that he had a performance that says, oh, he should be getting the reps ahead of Braxton Jones based on how well he played against the Dolphins. And I don't know, neither one moved the needle a lot for me.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, I'm right there with you. I think it's kind of a left tackle equals negative for this game, because there wasn't just that is the one position where it's like you wanted to see, like what you said, dominance. You wanted to see someone stand out, separate themselves from the pack, and really be, the left tackle for the Bears. And the other day in the inter squad practices, they threw someone else out there too in the first team unit. So I don't know if that is any indication also that they don't, Ben Johnson and them, they don't feel great about where it's going right now. But I'm not sure we're gonna. Lorin, I just don't get this feeling that there's going to be like a clear cut starter by the end of the preseason, and it's really just going to be preference by Ben Johnson, and it also might be a very small window of opportunity for that person to keep their job once the regular season starts.
Yeah, and it feels like the whole point of this offseason was to not have to be in this position, right? Like it was, let's overhaul this offensive line so we know it is locked in 5 positions left to right, rock solid. And we all loved the Joe Tooney trade and Drew Dahlman and free agency and all that stuff. And it was like, boy, offensive line is supposed to be fixed. And I hate that we're now in early August going, well, we're not sure if that left tackle position is going to be all set or not. And it's like, how still question marks. And I get you can't overhaul the whole offensive line in one offseason, but it just feels a little bit like if you have 2 left tackles, you don't have one, and you'd like to feel like, oh, there's one guy who's clearly dominant, because it's clear it's not like these guys are both really good and we can't decide which of these great players we need to play. It's like, is either one gonna be good this year? Or are we gonna just constantly have a question mark there of how long until Braxton Jones gets pulled for Ozzie, and then if Ozzie goes in there, is he gonna be good enough, and do then maybe go back to Braxton if Ozzie struggles, and are we just gonna have this kind of back and forth thing throughout the season, and then Braxton gets hurt and Ozzie goes back in, and it's just you go the whole year going, left tackle was always a little bit of a trouble spot, and we kind of could see it coming the whole way.
Yeah, does Kieran factor in at some point this year? It's weird. It's weird that the 2 things with the Bears this offseason that seemed obvious to the entire world, especially all the Bears fans, was what are you doing at running back and what are you doing at left tackle? And it's the one part that they didn't address this offseason, where they've got bodies, but have they picked bodies that can fill the role in the way you need them to? And I think that, will be crucial to what the Bears want to do this season. I'll be honest, besides, I didn't think Austin Reed looked great. I don't think that's to be surprised. I didn't really think there was the many other negatives that really flashed for me during this game. Was there anything else stand out for you, Lorin?
The third string tight end, Durham Smythe, I thought was particularly rough. Dropped the pass, some really bad blocks, especially early in this game. And and some of the right side of the offensive line, the offensive linemen who didn't have a shot at making the 53-man roster anyway, but I thought Theo Benedict struggled a bit at right tackle, and then Chris Glazer, the starting right guard, I thought especially early on, he had some really tough reps against starters. I think as the game went on and the matchups got easier, I think Benedict in particular settled in a little bit, but I thought Chris Glazer was really particularly bad there. And I was surprised to see him get those starting reps at right guard, because Luke Newman was left guard, Ryan Bates was at center, and then Glazer was at right guard. And I thought Jordan McFadden, the other backup who had gotten some first team reps at camp, I thought he was much better in this game. And I was surprised he was kind of behind Glazer in the depth chart and the order of operations there. But Glazer's got no shot at making this team, and he was pretty awful in there. But McFadden to me could be a sneaky 10th offensive lineman if they end up keeping 10.
Yeah, the offensive line as a whole, between Tyson Bagent, Case Keenum, Austin Reed, they all kind of felt like they were under fire a little bit at times in this game. And again, it's 1 starter, maybe 2 starters at some point played for you in this game. But it's the one part of everything that the Bears have tried to overhaul this offseason that didn't feel like it was there. Talked a lot about intensity in the first part of the show with the defensive guys. That showed throughout this game. Discipline. I think the Bears ended up with 8 penalties on the day. So it wasn't, a huge amount. They were set correctly, which is important, because that's something we've been hearing a lot about this offseason, is guys not knowing where to go, being in the wrong position. there wasn't your delay of games. Now this is Tyson Bagent and Case Keenum at quarterback, so some of those problems have been Caleb problems. But I do think like the operation of the football team was the one other thing that stood out in a positive way for me. That seemed to be clean. Let's see how it works out with the starters, but good first step.
Yeah, there was one illegal formation penalty where they had 2 guys on the line of scrimmage, and it was like they still did dabble in a few of those little things like that. But otherwise, it's a preseason game with a bunch of backups. Like we shouldn't expect, certainly not 0 penalties and a perfectly clean operation, because it's not Caleb Williams and company. That would be something that if the starters played, that might be the most you could glean. It's like not about Caleb Williams' completion percentage, but it's like, do they line up correctly? And is there any issue with delay of games or late snap, and late in the play clock snapping the ball, that kind of stuff? That's some of the real value that I think we could actually ascertain if those guys were out there.
Yeah, because that was the one thing when I guess it was kind of a game situation, the friends and family night at Soldier Field, where that was an issue, was the operation for Caleb Williams and those guys. And that's why, we'll talk more about what we want to see next week, but that is why I want, in the next segment, that is why I want to see Caleb out there. Is the most negative stuff has been the operation of the football team. And my gosh, Jim Miller cannot say enough nice things about Tyson Bagent in this game. I think I know which quarterback he prefers of the two, to be honest with you. That might be the other thing I learned the most about. He seems to be Team Tyson. Just a guess.
Oh, big time. I mean, and I thought Tyson had a good, not a good game, but of the 3 quarterbacks, he was the one I feel like I liked the most what I saw from him, just because you're right, he did have a lot of messy pockets. He had to step up and get around, and maybe, took a sack in there that he didn't need to, and, not perfect by any means, but the interception certainly wasn't his fault. Hit the receiver pretty darn close into the hands and just pops up and goes the other way. So, it makes the stat line and the passer rating look a lot worse than I think the actual performance was from Bagent. But the messiness of that pocket, I forgot about this earlier, I was going to circle back to, it does leave me just a little bit concerned about the offensive line depth, especially on the interior. That's something that I've kind of had my eye on all offseason. It's like Ryan Bates and a bunch of young guys and undrafted free agents that feels like, if Jonah Jackson has another injury this season with a big history, Drew Dahlman has some injury history. Like, I didn't love what I've seen from those guys, and I didn't get any more confidence in, like, oh yeah, if somebody else has to get in there, they're going to be just fine. It's like, they feels like they could use a little something extra there, but that's hopefully a problem that doesn't have to come up at all.
Yeah, and if it does happen, hopefully it's for a very short amount of time, because I do totally agree with you. It did leave, and I think we all kind of could have expected that too, where just based on how much of a struggle it's been to build the starting offensive line for this organization under Ryan Poles, that your depth probably is not going to be much better. And they didn't show up in a way today that made me feel confident either in this one. I do think Case Keenum had obviously a pretty good day, 8 for 10 with a touchdown on the day. I mean, he's definitely going to be the 3rd quarterback on this team. He's an interesting guy, Lorin. He didn't go to games last year. He basically got a handout from the Texans and got hurt, and they let him stay on the roster, and he would be at 1 or 2 games. I don't know if he was at practices, but he wasn't there. So he's going to be there every week for the Bears. But I do think Austin Reed's not going to make the roster this year. And I do think Tyson is playing well enough so far that, not that it should matter. Again, you hope it never matters. I do think he's going to win the 2nd quarterback spot on this roster. And we kind of saw why in this game, I thought. Yeah,
I wondered if we would see more of a true rotation in this game. First drive is Bagent, second drive is Keenum, third drive is Bagent, fourth drive is Keenum. But it seemed very clearly like Bagent was out there with the first team group, and then when backups came in, that's when Keenum, a clear delineation there in what was supposed to be a wide open number 2 quarterback competition. But it's going to be clearly a question of is Case Keenum valuable enough to them as a coach and a voice in the room to keep him as a 3rd quarterback on the 53-man roster, or can you just go with the 2 of Williams and Bagent? I'm guessing they'll keep Keenum because there was so much emphasis on that when they signed Case Keenum, that we want him here. They kept telling you, we want him here, not really for his play, but for everything else. So I would assume that value extends into the regular season, and they don't just have him as a training camp and preseason, basically coaching intern in the quarterback room.
Yeah. I mean, which is honestly, it's very ironic that you have him and then you have JT Barrett, who's your actual quarterback's coach. And you think about the experiences, what Case Keenum has done in his career versus JT Barrett has done is very different, obviously, in their careers. The other part,
Keenum's the older person. JT Barrett is 30 years old. It's crazy.
Case Keenum's like gotta be at least 40 at this point.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's that weird mix, right? Or like same thing happened last year with the tight ends coach. Jim Dre was younger than Mercedes Lewis. Like it's a relatively young coaching staff. I mean, Al Harris isn't that old. Declan Doyle, as we know, is younger than me. I mean, it's crazy. But they kind of blend that experience with that sort of fresh, young, innovative mind, and you kind of hope that the mixture of grumpy old Dennis Allen and then the young hip kids can kind of balance it out.
Hey, grumpy Ben Johnson too. He's a grump, man. He's exciting, but he's grumpy.
You notice his neck veins a lot.
Yeah.
He put the play sheet up over his mouth, but they were bulging. I was worried about his blood pressure. Like he was like really into it. He
might be the most intense coach the Bears have had ever, or at least in my lifetime. Like, I mean, he is an intense dude. Like he seems to just be on one at all times. I mean, that when he was, I guess it was when the Bears were going for it on fourth down. One of the times they went for it on fourth down, because obviously that's not how they're going to operate in the game, like in the regular season. Now, they did talk about this on the broadcast, like how aggressive will they be, similar to what the Lions were. I am curious about that, but I don't think anything that happened in this game is a reflection of that. But he's intense. He's a level 100 all the time.
Did either team even like punt?
Torrey punted twice,
but like that was not a lot of punting. I mean, it was only when they were backed up in their own territory a couple of times. But like this is very clearly we're just going to go for it, because why do we need to practice a random field goal when we're close anyway? We can just do extra points and roll on it. So I like the idea of getting some of that like fourth down pressure, in there, and say like, oh, you got to get it. What are you going to do? And what we saw at the end of the game that they couldn't on the 4th and 15 or whatever. And all right, at least we didn't get overtime.
Either team couldn't get it. That was a dreadful ending to a football game there. See, Bears fan for life says, Lorin, I like the status of this team and organization is headed in. What are your thoughts? Do you feel generally positive about where the Bears are going?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that this preseason game shifted it much in any direction there, right? Like, but yeah, I mean, you can with some of the stuff we talked about early on about like the intensity and the physicality, like some of the culture type stuff seems to be setting in and visible in a way that gives you some reassurance that the players are buying in, and not just the message is not just being heard, but actually like enacted. Like it's one thing to say, oh, everyone says all the right things and everyone says, oh, we really like this and we really like that. But then like when the physicality and the actions on the field start to match that, that's when it's like, all right, this is real. And then you just got to hope that translates into wins, which is the big next step.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's generally positive. Like there's still a lot of, can the players that are on this roster, can they execute the vision of, Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen? But on paper and through training camp and a preseason game, they're checking a lot of the boxes. Like in terms, like we mentioned, like on the first show we did together about the culture changing. You see some tangible like culture changing stuff happening so far. What you're hearing about the inter squad practices and how physical it was, and well, according to at least one Dolphins report, dirty, but he was the only one that said it. But it's generally it's positive. All right, we'll take a break here. Our final one, it'll be a quick one here for you on YouTube. We'll talk about our final thoughts on the game and then what we want to see next week in week 2 of the preseason in the Bears versus the Bills game. All right, what's the number one thing you want to see next week? Is it playing time from Caleb? Is there a certain player that stands out to you? Like, what are you hoping to see next week?
Yeah, I mean, so I think always the starters, if they play or not, is always going to be like the most important thing, just in terms of players that are going to have the most impact on the regular season game. But like aside from that, like it's kind of assuming that they probably don't play or play much of that. Like I just want to see like how the performances of this game impact the battles for next week, right? Is it still Braxton Jones for all the first half and Ozzie for the second half? Like, does that change, or does the wide receiver rotation change? Like, what is different from now to then that seems to be reflective of play, or in some cases maybe they'll just say, hey, like, yeah, you did great in that opportunity, but like let's keep the rotation the same and kind of see how you do. Like they want more of a sample size as opposed to like drastically changing and saying, oh, well, Austin Booker had 3 sacks, so now he's got to jump up. And maybe you say, oh, well, let's see how everyone does in one more game. Like maybe because he was going up against backups. Like, let's see how Robinson and Passanio do this week against these starters. And then, you don't have to make these wild swings in between as much. But those are kind of the, like, where the biggest changes happen to me is what I'll be watching the closest.
Yeah, I think it's specifically left tackle. Like, I don't think that Ozzie did enough to, next week say he should get the ball or get the left tackle spot earlier. But it's like, will their strategy change about how often he's out there? Or how long Braxton Jones is out there. And again, the Aaron squad stuff will matter a lot. But that's probably number one. Again, you're right. We said a couple times now, but I would like to see the starters out there just to see some operational stuff. Because that's the most negative we've heard this offseason surrounding Caleb Williams and the teams. Like, how does that look the next week? And then, the running back room is the other one that we've hit on quite a bit here. Is just like, how does it look like next week? Is it mainly because is there any chance Roshan's back, or is there a new player on the Bears that's impacting this team? I don't think it should be ignored that one of the players that brought in was Jamal Williams. Is Ben Johnson going to run it back with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams like he had his first year as the offensive coordinator in Detroit? So that's the other one because it feels like there's the most potential for a serious change is the running back position for next week.
And some of it's just like snap totals. Like the player on defense who played the most snaps in this game was Zach Pickens. They said, let's run this guy and see everything that he can do. And I'm curious, like, okay, next game, do they say, all right, well, we gave Pickens his big game. We saw a lot we could do. Now we kind of have that one figured out. So now, are we going to play Chris Williams more? Or do they say, no, these guys are going to play a lot every single preseason game because we really want to see more and more of what they can do. Like those kind of different decisions are the ones that are going to be most fascinating to me. It's just like with the left tackle battle too. Like Trapillo played a lot more than Braxton Jones. Are they saying we've seen not a lot more, but like he played more than Braxton Jones? So are they more comfortable in their evaluation of Braxton Jones where we kind of know what he is? So maybe over time, maybe Jones still starts, but then plays even less. And then we see even more Trapillo just to kind of see more of what he can actually do. Like how they sort of separate like sample size for these different guys is really going to be most fascinating.
Yeah. And then the wide receiver room too, like did he do anything in this game to elevate himself in the depth chart? I'm curious because obviously they're going to have much different perspectives than we are because they're watching the All-22 and they know exactly what's supposed to happen on each play. So they know where the guys did the best and the worst on each specific play. But because even though like it does look like what was mentioned earlier with Burden's falling down, I still feel like they're going to give him the opportunity to rise up the depth chart. So I do wonder if we see more of him next week. And because nothing probably Scott did, but didn't see a lot of Scott this week, like much impact from Taylor Scott.
Yeah. Like it feels to me like it's another one of those situations where like they should kind of know what Devin Duvernay is now, so like, do you need to play him much at all this week? Whereas like you still want to see as much Luther Burden as possible. Like, and same, maybe even with like a Tyler Scott type of player, like he's been around the block for a while. Like how much do you need to keep seeing more and more of him versus like get the young new guys out there that haven't been playing and really kind of ramp up their playing time? It's sort of this double-edged sword between like, do the veteran players need those snaps just to kind of stay sharp and fresh and knock some of the rust off, or was one preseason game against the Dolphins enough to kind of say, all right, now let's just really run the young guys and get as many reps and development opportunities for them as they can?
Yeah, and the last one, I guess, the most important question I think for the Bears in terms of health wise is just Terrell Smith. What is his status going to be going forward? Because while it did feel like at the start of the game today, it was clearly, it's Wright and Stevenson are your top two guys like that are battling for that other spot. We know Smith last year had some good moments, and that injury today, like that's probably the one part of this game today that's the biggest. It's the worst part of the game today, I would say.
Yeah, and honestly, they're kind of fortunate to have that be just it, right? I mean, especially over the weekend, we saw the big injury that they canceled the game early for. Like, even though it's not always because it's all backups, like you're not necessarily risking losing a super huge key major player, but yet like enough guys played in this game that if they go down, like you're going to be really missing some stuff. So like the big thing you can come away with from this preseason is as few injuries as possible. And like, I do not want to downplay the Terrell Smith thing at all, but like, it's probably a good thing that one player being the biggest loss in this game is all you had. And he's a good special teams player and a contributing backup, somebody who can be a starting caliber player. Like it's a big loss, especially if it's a serious injury. But like if that's all if you get through the Dolphins game and that's the only injury consequence, I think we can all live with that and feel like, all right, that's a pretty good outcome overall.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the biggest thing, you're right. Biggest thing through preseason is overall just getting through it healthy. And because the Bears, their injuries have happened. The Roschon one's one that obviously stands out. We're waiting on Jalen Johnson. It was a largely positive report on Jalen Johnson today. I felt like
I was torn on that because like the question, right, it was whoever asked Ian Cunningham. I can't remember the name of the reporter guy, but he asked him directly, will Jalen Johnson be ready for week 1? And Ian Cunningham did not say yes. Never in there did he say he'll be ready for week 1. He said,
that's true.
We're confident he'll be good whenever he is ready. And that to me sounds like a no, because I think,
I think reading it versus you hearing it, I'm hearing like it's different a little bit. So I think you're right.
Yeah. Where it's like, he doesn't have to come out and say, yes, we know he will for sure be ready for week 1 because it's an injury you don't know. But usually in that case, he might come out and say he's on track and we're fully expecting to have him for week 1. Like we don't know for sure, but like he's on track for the regular season and we should. But when he says we're confident he'll be good to go whenever he is ready to go, that to me says maybe not week 1, but that if he pops in week 2 or week 3, that he's not going to need a lot of warm up time. He can just go the next, if he's ready on Wednesday and they play Sunday, he'll play Sunday.
All right, you guys can catch us every single Tuesday at 4:00 live here on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, our Bear Squad show. So we'll be back this week with you guys on Tuesday at 4, and then we'll be here with you for an hour after every single Bears game, starting today all the way through whenever the season ends. Plus, you can catch Lorin Monday through Friday, the daily Locked On Bears podcast as well. So thank you guys for watching today and hanging out with us here in the chat and on YouTube, plus wherever you get your podcast, Apple and Spotify. We will talk to you guys on Tuesday. Peace.